Bangladesh, a land of vibrant culture and resilience, finds itself at a crossroads. The nation, known for its indomitable spirit, is grappling with a wave of student protests that have shaken its political landscape to the core. To understand the current unrest, we must rewind the clock, delving into the years leading up to this boiling point. For over a decade and a half, Sheikh Hasina, often dubbed the Iron Lady of Bangladesh, held the reins of power. Her leadership, while marked by economic progress and development initiatives, was also marred by accusations of authoritarianism, human rights violations, and the suppression of dissent. Opposition voices, particularly from student groups who form a significant part of Bangladesh's politically active populace, were often silenced. Reports of enforced disappearances, restrictions on freedom of speech, and a climate of fear became increasingly commonplace. The seeds of discontent were sown, and as the years passed, they took root in the fertile ground of public frustration. Years of simmering resentment towards the Hasina government, coupled with a growing sense of disillusionment among the youth, created a tinderbox-like atmosphere, ripe for ignition. The stage was set for a dramatic confrontation, and it wouldn't be long before the nation found itself engulfed in a maelstrom of protests and political turmoil. The year 2024 began with a sense of unease in Bangladesh. The whispers of discontent, long suppressed, grew louder, fueled by a series of events that further eroded public trust in the Hasina government. Economically, the nation was feeling the pinch. Rising inflation, coupled with allegations of corruption and cronyism within the ruling elite, added fuel to the fire of public resentment. The government's response, seen by many as heavy-handed and out of touch, only served to exacerbate the situation. Then, in a move that sent shockwaves through the nation, Sheikh Hasina announced her resignation. The Iron Lady, who had seemed invincible for so long, was stepping down. Her departure, shrouded in mystery and speculation, left a void in Bangladeshi politics, paving the way for a new era of uncertainty and a scramble for power. While the official narrative pointed to health reasons and a desire to pave the way for younger leadership, doubts lingered in the minds of many Bangladeshis. Was Hasina's departure truly voluntary, or was there more to the story than met the eye? Rumors swirled, with some suggesting she was pressured to step down by elements within her own party, concerned about the growing unrest and the potential for a full-blown revolution. Others whispered of backroom deals and a power struggle within the ruling elite, with Hasina becoming a casualty of her own party's internal power dynamics. Adding fuel to the fire was the government's tight-lipped approach to the entire affair. The lack of transparency surrounding Hasina's resignation only served to deepen the sense of mistrust and fueled speculation that something was amiss. The stage was set for a new chapter in Bangladesh's political drama, one where the truth remained elusive and the stakes were higher than ever. With Hasina's departure, the mantle of leadership fell upon President Mohammed Shahabuddin. Initially, there was a glimmer of hope. Perhaps this transition of power would usher in an era of dialogue, reform, and a more inclusive approach to governance. However, these hopes were quickly dashed as Shahabuddin, despite initially striking a conciliatory tone, soon reverted to the familiar rhetoric of his predecessor. His statements, often dismissive of the protesters' concerns and seemingly tone-deaf to the public's desire for change, did little to quell the unrest. In a particularly controversial address, Shahabuddin referred to the student protesters as misguided and manipulated by outside forces. This statement, widely seen as an attempt to discredit and delegitimize the protests, only served to further inflame tensions. Instead of calming the storm, Shahabuddin's words had the opposite effect, fanning the flames of dissent and pushing the nation closer to the precipice. Section 5. The Students' Rise. A Chorus of Dissent. At the heart of this political earthquake are the students of Bangladesh. Long recognized for their history of activism and their pivotal role in shaping the nation's destiny, they have once again emerged as a powerful force for change. Their dissatisfaction, simmering for years, has finally reached a boiling point. They are the ones who have borne the brunt of the government's authoritarian tactics. Their voices stifled, their freedoms curtailed. These are not merely students protesting for the sake of protesting. They are the conscience of a nation, their demands reflecting a deep-seated desire for a more just, equitable, and democratic Bangladesh. Section 6. Demands for change. A new Bangladesh in their sights. The students' demands are not limited to the resignation of a single leader. They represent a clarion call for systemic change, for a complete overhaul of a system they believe has failed them. At the forefront of their demands is an end to corruption and impunity. They are tired of witnessing a system where the powerful operate above the law, where cronyism trumps meritocracy, and where the voices of ordinary citizens are routinely ignored. They demand accountability for the human rights abuses that have plagued Bangladesh under successive governments. They want justice for the victims of enforced disappearances, an end to extrajudicial killings, and a guarantee that their fundamental rights will be respected. The students envision a Bangladesh where freedom of speech is not a privilege but a right, where dissent is not met with repression but with dialogue, and where the government is truly accountable to the people it governs. Their struggle is not just about politics, it is about the very soul of Bangladesh. In the wake of Hasina's departure, an interim government was swiftly installed, tasked with overseeing the transition and paving the way for fresh elections. However, this interim government, largely seen as a continuation of the previous regime, has done little to assuage the concerns of the protesters. The students, along with a growing chorus of opposition figures and civil society groups, have questioned the legitimacy of this interim government. They argue that it lacks a mandate from the people and is merely a ploy by the ruling elite to cling to power. The interim government's attempts to quell the protests, often resorting to the same heavy-handed tactics employed by its predecessor, have further eroded public trust. The use of tear gas, rubber bullets, and arbitrary arrests against peaceful protesters has only served to solidify the perception that little has changed. The current unrest in Bangladesh is not an isolated incident, but rather the latest chapter in a long and tumultuous struggle for democracy and human rights. The nation has witnessed similar periods of upheaval in its short history, often marked by student-led movements challenging authoritarian rule. The echoes of the 1971 Liberation War, a testament to the Bangladeshi people's unwavering desire for self-determination, resonate strongly in the current climate. The students, acutely aware of their history, draw inspiration from the sacrifices of those who came before them, their actions fueled by the same yearning for a free and just Bangladesh. However, history also serves as a cautionary tale. Bangladesh has experienced periods of military rule, coups, and political assassinations. The path ahead is fraught with uncertainty, and the possibility of the situation escalating into widespread violence and instability remains a very real concern. The international community has been watching the unfolding events in Bangladesh with a mixture of concern and cautious optimism. Various human rights organizations have expressed alarm at the government's crackdown on dissent and urged restraint. The United Nations has called for dialogue and a peaceful resolution to the crisis, emphasizing the importance of respecting fundamental freedoms and upholding the rule of law. Several Western governments have issued statements expressing concern over the violence and urging all parties to engage in constructive dialogue. However, concrete action from the international community has been limited. There are calls for targeted sanctions against individuals responsible for human rights abuses and for greater diplomatic pressure on the Bangladeshi government to address the protesters' legitimate grievances. Bangladesh stands at a critical juncture. The choices made in the coming days and weeks will have far-reaching consequences, not just for the nation's political future, but for its very soul. The students, with their unwavering determination and their courageous stand against injustice, have ignited a spark of hope in the hearts of many Bangladeshis. Their movement, fueled by a desire for a better future, has the potential to chart a new course for the nation. However, the road ahead is fraught with challenges. The government's response, the role of the military, and the willingness of all stakeholders to engage in meaningful dialogue will determine whether Bangladesh descends further into turmoil or emerges from this crisis stronger and more united. The world watches, hoping that Bangladesh, a nation that has overcome immense adversity in the past, will once again find a way forward, guided by the principles of democracy, justice, and the indomitable spirit of its people.